Absolutely hated working with you, Pearl.
You're a terrible spy, cowboy.
Good evening, gentlemen. Rather touching scene. Nice view, glass of whiskey, and a little bonfire to keep you warm. Rather good idea. So I have news. A fresh little unpleasantness has arisen. But I've spoken to your superiors, and now that we're all such good friends, they've kindly agreed to let me keep the team together for a while. We leave in an hour.
Where are we going?
Istanbul, Kiryakin. You'll need your curly-whirly shoes. Oh, and you have a new code name.
A code name?
Yes, rather a good one. Uncle.
Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. A relic of the Cold War.
Shaken, but not stirred.
007 reporting for duty.
These are the 00 files.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Woo! We have taken some overdue holiday. Dawn is really exciting once again.
I had too much coffee, sorry.
We have taken some overdue holiday, and after a well-deserved summer break, we once again find ourselves sitting behind the mic. And with we, I mean the 4 operatives from the 00 files who will gladly introduce themselves in a minute. But before we go there, I have a small announcement to make, because like our favorite British spy does every now and then, we have decided to go rogue on this podcast. We will discuss a non-Bond film in this podcast, namely the 2015 spy thriller The Man From U.N.C.L.E. We came up with the idea to every now and then review a non-Bond film in a podcast. It is the first time for us, so please let us know whether you like it or not. It's kind of an experiment. We have decided that every non-Bond film that we will discuss needs to have some sort of link to James Bond. And for those of you who don't know the link between The Man From U.N.C.L.E. and James Bond, it goes right back to the source of Bond himself, Ian Fleming. But we'll get back to that later. First off, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Anthony, and I will be your host on this rogue podcast. With me are my 3 trusted fellow operatives from the 00 files. First up is our very own Harry Palmer lookalike. He wears the same type of glasses, has the Michael Caine swagger, and is the everyday man equivalent of James Bond. It's Mr. Tyler. Good afternoon.
You.
How are you, Tyler?
I'm doing great, but my Michael Caine impression is non-existent. Sorry.
Really?
I do have a very good Henry Cavill, though.
Well, go ahead. Oh, you're staring, Mike.
Staring.
It's a non-audio.
Yeah.
Okay, second is the team leader of our impossible mission force. He loves wearing latest masks, likes playing tapes that will self-destruct in 5 seconds. It's none other than Mr. Don.
Is that a Mission Impossible thing?
Wow, that's amazing. Yep, going back to the 60s Spy series here. How was your holiday, Don?
Oh, that's a long time ago. It was good. It was actually pretty good. I went to France and visited all kinds of James Bond locations from Moonraker, Thunderball, and A View to a Kill. But I'm sure we'll discuss that on another podcast.
Sounds very good,
yeah.
Yes. And finally is our very own Avenger with a bowler hat, umbrella, and an upper-class English accent that would even make Her Majesty the Queen jealous. It's Mr. Martin.
Hello, hello.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon to you, sir.
And how were your days off?
Very good. I've been to France as well for some location hunting and some beachcombing and some reading. So time flies when you're having fun.
What's the latest novel that you read?
I'm now working my way through the original Live and Let Die. So.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
We should do a podcast on that.
Yeah, we might.
Brilliant idea.
Maybe. Who knows?
So, guys, looking forward to this Rogue podcast.
Good to be back.
That's a difficult question because it's not a Bond film. But I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But yeah, I'm in between. I'm not sure yet. But
let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. Well, I know what you mean, Don. It's not a Bond film, and I also had a bit of difficulty preparing this podcast. So I have decided to be a bit more creative this time and do it in a slightly different manner than we usually do on the Bond film podcast reviews. We are not going to discuss this film chronologically. We are going to talk about The Man from U.N.C.L.E. by discussing key elements that we are familiar with from the James Bond films. So think in terms of the girls, the villains, the location, music, several set pieces. So different approach. Let's see where it takes us. Maybe we would like it, maybe we'll do, but there's only one way to find out. But before we take a deep dive into the film, let's talk about the original TV series from the 60s on which this film is based. Have any of you guys ever saw an episode from The Man from U.N.C.L.E?
Not an entire episode, no. Just some clips.
I'm the same. I haven't. I've only seen a few clips on YouTube. I tried to look at a few episodes, but I think you can buy them from Amazon on DVD or something. But I think I got a pretty good gist of what they were like. There were 4 seasons, right?
There were 4 seasons from 1964 till 1968. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, there were a few of these 60s series on Dutch television. We had The Saint, we had The Persuaders.
Right, Mission Impossible.
The Avengers.
The Avengers as well, yeah. But this wasn't one of them. So, no, I never actually saw one.
You said you saw a few clips or from episodes?
Yeah, just some put together clips by fans.
And was it more like I can remember the original Mission Impossible series was more serious, while the Avengers was more crazy 60s flavored?
From what I've seen, it was more like the Avengers and sometimes even more Benny Hill than
Benny Hill.
Okay. Than the more serious. It had a bit of The Saint and stuff like that.
But this thing, the Man from U.N.C.L.E., it was created as a television series, right? It's not based on a book or a comic or anything. It was
based on a book.
Originally?
Books, yeah. I know a friend of mine the one who actually got me into Bond was a reader of these books, but I'm not sure whether they were made after the series or whether the
I
series
think they
was
were.
based
I'm
on
not
it.
sure, but I think a TV producer or a film producer approached Fleming for his ideas, an American.
I did some research, and that's what I found indeed. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was initially a TV series. It followed 2 secret agents played by Robert Vaughn and David McCallum.
I really like Robert Vaughn. I know him from Columbo, evil man that wants to kill someone. And,
he was also in the A-Team, right? In the
with the yellow glasses.
Yeah. The later episodes, he was their chief or something, of giving them assignments or something like that.
Yeah, and he's also in the BBC series Hustle, which is a great series, really funny.
And he's one of the Magnificent Seven.
The original one?
Seven. Yeah, you know the trailer?
I've seen it a couple of times even, but...
Yeah, he's one of them. He's the guy who's wearing...
black hat?
No, black and white, really tailored
I wouldn't mind revisiting that film. But
I have it in my film database. It's number 285. So if you'd like to borrow it from me. And they worked for a secret international counter-espionage and law enforcement agency called U.N.C.L.E. You know where the abbreviation stood for?
Oh, I have that somewhere.
I thought so.
Because if you watch the film, it's only at the very end that they mention it, and then in the credits, they show what it actually means. It says United Network Command for Law and Enforcement.
And the series ran for 4 seasons, from 64 till 68, and was quite popular, even leading to a spin-off series called The Girl from U.N.C.L.E.
That was with April something.
Yeah, the name
April
of the girl.
Dancer.
There's a name also invented by Fleming. The main theme of the series was that an American secret agent, played by Vaughn, worked together with a Russian secret agent, played by McCallum, which was quite daring in the heydays of the Cold War. And the main link with James Bond, we just discussed this, is of course that Ian Fleming himself contributed ideas for this series and came up with the unique name of the main character, Napoleon Solo.
It's a good name.
It's a very good name.
Yeah, and they wanted to call the series Solo at first, but they couldn't.
The Adventures of Solo or something like that.
But they couldn't because there was a Mr. Solo in Goldfinger.
Yeah. One of the main characters in the film Goldfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Bond, I thought you were resting in your quarters. Oh, they are delightful, but it's much too nice to stay indoors. I ran into Miss Galore, and she suggested that we join you. Mr. Solo, Mr. Bond, another of my distinguished guests. Hello. Leaving us so soon, Mr. Solo? Unfortunately, he has a pressing engagement.
Yeah. I'd like to get started, Goldfinger. Boy.
When you gotta go, you gotta go. My plane will get you to New York on time. With your excess luggage. Allow me. My chauffeur's an excellent driver. He will be at the airport in a few minutes. Goodbye, Mr. Solo. Some other time, perhaps. Happy landings, old boy.
I'm wondering, did they also sue George Lucas afterwards for Han Solo?
They might. Or what about William Boyd for coming up with a book called Solo?
Nobody forever can use the word Solo anymore. They kicked off with a pilot TV film originally titled Ian Fleming's Solo. That was it. But Ian demanded a different name. They didn't want the name of Fleming to be connected with the series, and also claimed Solo was a very important character in that film.
But those were the producers, right? Broccoli and Saltzman, that were angry at the television show. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because 64, Fleming was already dead, right? Around 64.
April
he
64,
died in 64.
12th of April. August, sorry.
Oh, okay.
And as I said, the series was really popular, and they managed to attract a lot of famous actors for guest roles. Also some people we know from the Bond franchise: Luciana Paluzzi, Richard Kiel, Jack Lord, Telly Savalas, and Nancy Sinatra.
I saw that scene on YouTube with Jack Lord. He plays an agent of Thrush, is it?
That was the Spectre-like...
that was the evil organization. And
do you also know where the Thrush stands for?
What I read is that it's not an acronym, that it doesn't stand for anything, but you made up some words.
No, I don't know it. So I saw all your notes. I think probably Don knows
you found some other information. No, what I read was that Thrush was never explained what it stood for, if it stood for anything. But Jack Lord supposedly plays an ex-agent of Thrush that is now turned double, and he's being handled by Napoleon Solo. You can see this scene on YouTube. It's funny because he speaks with a Spanish or Italian accent, but it gives a pretty good idea of what this show was like, and it's really cartoonish, or I don't know, like Casino Royale 67 spoof, like I think it was season 4 or something that Jack Lord had his episode.
And in 1983 there was a reunion telefilm called Return of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. It featured Patrick Macnee and the character of a secret agent called JB that drove an Aston Martin DB5, and you guys know who played that character?
Yeah,
Mr. Lazenby.
It was Mr. Lazenby himself. You can see the clip, I think, on YouTube, where he's wearing a white dinner jacket. He's driving the Aston Martin. It looks pretty good.
You know, what I'll do is I'll find some good clips on YouTube and I'll add those to the show notes so you can just click on them.
Would you guys like to see a 2019 Netflix series of The Man from U.N.C.L.E?
Set in the 60s or set in current day?
Set in the 60s.
But that wouldn't be very much unlike the film, right? I mean, the film is pretty much how you would create a show like this nowadays.
That's true.
The trouble that I have with this movie, it's either set up to be the first of many movies, because at the end of the movie, we have our team together and, oh, by the way, we came up with a great name, U.N.C.L.E. Here we go. Next movie will be out December 2016.
Except it won't.
Except it wasn't. And it wasn't in 2017 either, or 18 or 19 or 20. Or
I think that's pretty much dead in the water.
Yeah, and it's either the first episode of a series or it's just a standalone movie where we have an origin story for people that we'll never see anymore.
It's a shame because around the same time there was also the film Kingsman.
Yeah. The first one, right?
Yeah, there was already a second one, and now there will be a third one, which
it was
will be
also
a prequel.
the fifth Mission Impossible came out there, and Spectre, of course.
Spectre,
It was really a spy year, 2015.
It was a good year.
Yeah, when did the latest Bourne come out? Was that around that time?
2 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Man, so many.
Terrible movie, by the way. Even while it was set in Las Vegas, so I should love it, but I don't.
You mean the latest Bourne film? The fourth one with Matt Damon, right? They first make the trilogy, and then a couple of years later, they came. First, you had the Jeremy Renner Bourne
spin-off thing,
which was actually quite a good movie. And then we have the Jason Bourne one, the fifth movie in the series, and the fourth movie with Matt Damon, and that completely sucked monkey balls.
Oh, okay.
What was your question again?
Would you like? Okay, let me rephrase my question. Would you like to see more The Man from U.N.C.L.E. films?
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because otherwise it would feel like I sat through a 2-hour movie for nothing.
I sense some aggression here.
Not at all. I'm passivity himself.
I wouldn't. I think it's fine. Leave it as it is. I don't really care about the characters. But we'll probably get to that when we start discussing the film.
Is there something we would like to discuss regarding the 60s TV series?
Well, since none of us actually saw the 60s TV series.
Let's put it this way. The movie from 2015 didn't make me want to re-watch the original series. So it wasn't like, oh man, I need to see everything and read everything about this Man From U.N.C.L.E guy. This Napoleon Solo is the hero that I want to identify myself with. I might even make a podcast of it.
Yet here you are.
Yet here I am.
So then let's go to 2015 and to the film The Man From U.N.C.L.E.
Me love me. Me love me. Taxi, taxi. Oh, chiki boutique, kitty gamoo. Chiki boutique, kitty gamoo.
In the director's chair, we find one of the hottest British directors of the past 2 decades, Guy Ritchie. And we as Bond fans have more in common with Ritchie than you think. For starters, both Bond fans and Ritchie were not pleased with Madonna's performance.
They were married, right?
Yeah, they were married and they're divorced.
Yeah.
But to be fair, can you find someone who was pleased with Madonna's performance?
No.
We're talking Die Another Day here, right? She's not in this actual movie.
No, she's not in the movie.
Okay.
But really, was he one of the hottest directors? If you look at his filmography?
Well, after Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch.
And that's it, right?
Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr.
I never liked those. I really never liked those.
No, but it was pretty hot at
they
the moment.
They were popular then.
They were quite popular. They made
but
two
he
of those.
also made Rock and Rolla and... What else? Recently, he came up with King Arthur or something.
No, yeah, as
and
well,
now
and
Aladdin
Robin
film.
Hood as well. A new take on Robin Hood.
I like his first two. That's pretty much it. But
I think Snatch is brilliant. It's a great film.
That's one of the first.
Yeah, but he was back in 2014-15. He was still a quite popular director.
Oh.
So, like we said, Ritchie has directed films like Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, and the Sherlock Holmes films featuring Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes. And his trademarks as a director are high-octane action and quick jump cut scenes. The Man From U.N.C.L.E also features this style. You liked it?
No.
That was a clear answer from Martin.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's in my notes. As you said, we're not going to go through it, the film like scene by scene, but there's a few instances where I really hate the directing, where I think like camera angles editing is just so much wasted opportunity in this film. So.
What about the picture-in-picture? You get that comic booky look
yeah, exactly
2 times or 3 times.
That was really popular in the 60s films.
Mm-hmm.
I think the visuals of this movie are great, really, and especially the final action scene where you get the picture-in-picture where everything is happening at the same time.
When they're entering the island.
I love the way that was.
Oh, that's the thing I just wrote down, like the biggest letdown. I'm like, it looks like a trailer. It just completely takes me out of it. It's like, there's something happening, a recap or something, instead of actually like big guns blazing, everything action music, and it's just. I'm like, well, okay, here's a montage. Time to get
it's
another
definitely a montage, but you like it.
I agree with Tyler.
It fits the style.
I think one of the highlights of the film is the visuals, visuals that we see.
And we're not just talking about Miss Vikander.
Absolutely not, but let's get back to that later.
Yes.
Something else that Ritchie mentioned that I read while doing some research is that he's especially focused on the male dynamic in his films. If you look at Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch, is always about different kinds of men interacting with each other in different amounts of power or hierarchy or something like that. And he really liked that between Kuryakyn and Solo as well, their dynamic. More perhaps than how they would interact with, what's her name, Gabby something. Yeah. So that's, I don't know, he's very focused on male interaction.
Yeah. But
which
getting back to the
film.
way he cuts the scenes, the action scenes, and the way he has this picture-in-picture shots, would it fit for a Bond film as well?
No. I don't think so, no.
And why not?
Well, now we have Cary Fukunaga, who is a
Bond
very
25.
visual director. And he has come up with some pretty neat stuff in his other films and TV shows. So I'm hoping to get like some sort of surprise when I'm watching the new one, like something that we haven't seen in a Bond film yet.
But what if he would do something like this?
Well, if you do it right, it can be amazing.
You guys, both Tyler and you, Martin, say no.
No, because it feels a bit gimmicky. And gimmicky works for this movie, for The Man From U.N.C.L.E, but I don't think it would work that well for a Bond movie. However, having a double-taking pigeon in there once in a while is fine by me. So,
well, tone-wise, this film, The Man From U.N.C.L.E, is very light.
Yeah.
It focuses heavily on comedy, not taking anything very seriously, not even the viewer sometimes. And the recent Bond films take themselves very seriously. So unless there's a significant change in tone, it might not be the proper approach.
agree.
But have you
I
seen-
don't think Spectre takes itself that seriously. I think there are a couple of real campy moments, like the falling on the
sofa,
and the lion sleeps tonight in the jungle scene with Madeline Swan. What are we going to do now? I know something. It has something to do with my drink.
I think Spectre takes itself very seriously. But
Maybe
we don't take the film that seriously.
Maybe you do take it
But,
seriously. What I wanted to say is, have you seen the Fukunaga series Maniac on Netflix?
No.
It's about two people who think they're crazy and they sign up for some sort of experiment. And in the final episode, there's this wonderful shot, a shootout in small corridors. And just based on that one scene, I think Fukunaga can really surprise us with some awesome action.
For some reason, as soon as I hear that someone is either playing in a Bond movie or directing a Bond movie or making the music for a Bond movie, I quit watching that person altogether. I don't want to be spoiled. I want everything to be new.
Really? Even if it's a director?
Yeah,
Or
I-
composer? Or even an actor? But doesn't...
There are people who immediately start looking for it. And I'm not saying that I won't watch anything with that actor in it, but I'm not going to watch all the movies with Rami Malek, for instance. As a matter of fact, I'm waiting for Bond 25 to come out before watching Bohemian Rhapsody. And now I'm watching Papillon, which is already something
Thin Ice.
I don't want to see this. I don't want to see
Then look at the original with Steve McQueen.
I think the first, that's a better film probably.
That's a pretty good film.
The first time I saw Rami Malek was in the series The Pacific. That was the Second World War show from Spielberg and Tom Hanks. And I thought the guy had really freaky eyes. He was quite memorable in that series already. It's amazing that he's now a Bond villain.
The thing is, I just don't want to be watching a Bond movie and go like, oh, this is a Fukunaga trope.
Right.
Oh, here we have the look that...
right, I recognize this from...
Yeah, oh, this is the way... that's why I think casting someone like John Cleese, for instance, who you know from all the great comedy series, was a bit of a mistake because he was so well known that his entire role and his entire acting was campy, even if he played it straight, because you just know the guy.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, yeah.
Getting back to The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yes.
and the style from the director Guy Ritchie, I saw an interesting small clip on YouTube or documentary about the film, and what they said there, which applied for both this film and most of the film from Guy Ritchie, is that he always chooses style over substance. So he finds it more important that it looks good than that it's believable or that you are really invested in the characters. I do see that coming back in both this film as well as in Snatch or in the Sherlock Holmes films. If you look at the action sequences in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., it's more about do they look good? Do you have a certain feeling than that you're really at the edge of your seat?
But it's quite a risky tactic, because if you look at Martin, for instance, he hates it because of the visuals. So
what else do you have then?
There's nothing left.
Then there's nothing left.
Yeah, like I don't mind the visual itself, like the whole picture thing. Like all the small pictures in itself look very good, but I think it's just completely the wrong place for having such a trick. And if you say, if you just take that away, and then what you're left with is pretty much like a 2-minute gap for me to go and grab a drink and then go back when the film starts.
A bland story with lots of exposition in clunky places.
Actually, I didn't come across that quote or anything. I'm glad you found that, because it makes perfect sense to me now. That's exactly what I think is wrong with this film.
With this information, we need to watch it again.
I'm not sure if that's wrong with the film, but that's a decision the
deliberate
director
choice.
has made.
I know, but that's exactly what I don't like about it.
For instance, if you take the action sequence in the middle of the film where they break into the
harbor
factory,
factory,
and when they break out again, Napoleon Solo goes into this truck and he puts on this classic music.
Love it.
Vorrei tenerti qui vicino a me. Adesso che fra noi non c'è più nulla. Vorrei sentire ancora le tue parole.
It's a great scene, but the action, you're not at the edge of your seat anymore for the boat chase that's going on. You don't care about the boat chase anymore. It's all about
he's just
Solo
having his
and the way
sandwich.
has lunch and enjoys.
I was going to say, there's like a third of an action sequence, and then it's watching someone eat an apple and drink
that's
something.
exactly style over substance, because there you choose to have a certain feeling, certain vibe in the scene, and you either love it or you hate it, I think.
I love it.
Di tutti i giorni miei, se nei miei giorni non ci sei più tu.
But the problem the main problem I had with this film has to do with me not caring for the characters. And if I'm not invested with the characters, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the characters later on, I can't relate to what they're going through. There's a certain distance towards what I'm looking at, and if I'm not invested, I really couldn't care less.
But you can still enjoy the visuals.
I can enjoy the visuals,
the
but I just
music,
don't really care what happens. So it is style over substance. It's like a happy meal. It's like, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, you don't remember what it was, or you regret having it.
I agree. I'm not invested in the characters at all. I don't care for them.
Exactly.
But I do enjoy the film.
While it lasts.
While it lasts, for the look, for the certain choices the director has made, the style of the film. Talking about characters, the American agent Napoleon Solo is played by the British actor Henry Cavill. Tyler can give a great impression of Henry Cavill.
I'm staring, Tyler.
You should put this on our site as well. Just a small clip from
I was going to say, we have Instagram.
And before donning the famous Superman cape, Henry Cavill was the runner-up to Daniel Craig in the casting for James Bond in Casino Royale.
There you go.
He was then in his early 20s, and the producers in the end deemed him too young for the role of 007.
It's kind of like Timothy Dalton, right? Back in '69.
Yeah, but that wasn't Dalton himself who thought it was too, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't want to follow in Connery's footsteps. Yeah.
It was more a Brosnan thing, I think.
Yeah.
It would have made perfect sense to cast a younger actor than Daniel Craig in Casino Royale.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad it wasn't him.
Why? What's wrong with him?
He has the charisma and the acting abilities of a wooden deck chair.
Okay.
And I mean, all being fair, the guy has great looks.
He looks the part.
He looks the part. But he would work very well on a film poster, but not in a movie itself. And I think that's the main problem I have with this movie as well. I mean, you can't relate to the character. You don't think he's particularly clever or charismatic. And then you have a Russian agent who's...
He has issues.
He has issues, but he's also very, very bland. And then you have two main characters who are incredibly bland. And that's not an enjoyable...
I agree with you. And I think Henry Cavill, he looks too good to be Bond.
No.
I think he's too handsome. He's too muscled, too much. The poster boy looks that he has. Bond needs to be a bit rough
if he
around
had
the
some
edges.
Three-dimensionality to his acting,
some subtlety,
then I think it would work pretty well. Because I think that a pretty guy can also play an ugly character, like Bond is.
And he did in Fallout as well.
I really liked him in Fallout.
I do like him in that film.
But
maybe he had better connection with the director in Fallout. I don't know.
He has just one way of delivering his lines. It's all very monotone. It's all very slightly tongue-in-cheek. But
he has a good American accent, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, for an English guy. Yeah. It's weird that pretty much no one plays their own nationality in this film. Yeah.
Only Hugh Grant plays his own nationality, I read somewhere.
Yeah. No, and someone, the German guy.
Oh, yeah.
That likes to torture people.
Yeah,
but more on that later.
Yeah.
Just briefly, because we reached the characters, right? I was looking at the film, and I thought Henry Cavill, or Cavill, how do you pronounce this?
Cavill.
Yeah. I thought he was quite tall. And yet he has to look up to everybody in this film. So I was wondering, how tall is everybody? So I did some research on IMDb. I'm not sure if you found this, but
looking at the heights of all the actors, no, I didn't.
No, okay.
Do
So Henry Cavill is 185 centimeters.
So that's not very short.
It's not very short.
No.
It's a good height. I'd like to be that tall. But Army. I get these names. Army Hammer. He's 196.
Yeah, it's a big fella.
Okay. That's a tall guy. And then Alicia Vikander is only 168.
Perfect.
So that's,
but wearing heels the entire
movie. But wearing
movie.
heels and kind of regular. And then Elizabeth Debicki, the villainess, the what's her name?
Victoria.
She's 190. That's really tall.
Yep.
It's really tall. So normally, I wouldn't say normally, but what you used to do in films is you would raise characters on a box so they would look taller. But they didn't do that in the film, luckily. So when Solo is walking next to Victoria, she actually is taller than he is. And it's good. It's nice. It's nice that they didn't change that.
There is this scene in Casino Royale where Bond is walking next to M when he
On
gets
the Bahamas?
he gets the thing planted in his wrist.
Ouch.
And it's so obvious that Craig is walking on stilts to not be about as tall as Judi Dench is. It's so obvious because his knees are about 5 feet from the ground. It's probably just watch the scene and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Are you serious? Because Judi Dench is like really, really small.
Judi Dench is tiny, yeah.
Yes, and so is Daniel Craig. But in that scene, they just put him on 2 apple boxes and really...
Okay, I'm going to watch it later.
Daniel Craig's not that bad.
Daniel Craig is like 5'7", which is about 175.
That's how tall I am.
So we all agree
Oh, thank you, Ty.
You're not that long.
I have a small inferiority complex.
So we all agree that Henry Cavill would not be a great James Bond for Daniel Craig?
I think he has the looks. I really think he does.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think he has anything else, though.
I agree.
I think he's too handsome.
The only film I saw him in and in which I thought he was really acting well was Mission Impossible Fallout.
It's a mustache, I guess.
Might be the mustache.
He was under the influence of a mustache, yeah.
I haven't seen him in that much films. I saw him as Superman.
Superman.
It was really, really, really boring.
Yeah, okay.
I do wonder, and it might be opening a can of worms, but do you also think that female characters who play a serious part shouldn't be too pretty? Like, can we have a very pretty and very sexy nuclear scientist, for instance?
Elizabeth Shue from The Saints.
Yeah, you mentioned that
Rest my case.
before.
Yeah, but she's not that pretty, is she?
Well.
Okay.
Define pretty.
Okay.
But I was going to say, talking about like female antagonists which shouldn't be that pretty, should we talk about Fiona Volpe for a second?
I would love to. Can we please fill an entire podcast on Fiona Volpe?
No, we can't, because we're going to the Russian agent. Kuryakin, and he's played by Armie Hammer, who should really call his son Thors, by the way. Bing! Thor's hammer, the hammer from Thor. I'm sorry. What do you think of Hammer's performance?
They could have called him Bobby Bland.
I don't know. I kind of like the guy. Yeah, I don't know. Just has something about him that, well, maybe it's him next to Cavill that makes anyone look more interesting and less bland.
I'm going to try to explain my main problem with this film. And I was pretty much halfway through this film, and I hadn't seen one likable character yet up until Hugh Grant's entrance. Because all the guys were jerks. They're constantly trying to...
one-upping each other. Yeah.
Exactly. It's always downgrading the other people around them. They're never serious. They're always like, look at me, I'm great, you're nothing. It's like they're teenage boys. And it's like, can't you just have a normal, civilized conversation? Why does everybody have to be so smart or snappy or just nasty? I mean, all the characters, I didn't like any of them until Hugh Grant showed up. And I think finally, a normal guy...
But the idea is, of course, the rivalry between those two agents, and that's why they're constantly...
But nobody interacts with others like that. Even the boss, Jared... What was his name? Jared... Harris. He's being a jerk all the time. Then Alicia Vikander can't talk nice to someone for 5 seconds. Everything has to be just nasty. And I was like, why am I watching this?
They should have called it The Jerk from U.N.C.L.E. then, right?
Yeah, The Jerk from U.N.C.L.E. That would be better, yeah. Definitely. But
so that's your main problem with the chemistry, the two actors?
You have Armie Hammer, who plays Kuryakin, who has some sort of mental defect. So if you say something that isn't nice, and they constantly do this... He fires up like a bull that watches some red flag waving in front of his eyes. It's like... Nah, I don't know. It's just... It feels like they're acting like... I don't know. They're acting like teenagers, and the film is made for a young audience. But this is... I don't know. It lost all credibility for me because I didn't like anyone. Except for the Waverly character. I thought he was fun.
Okay.
That's me. That's my problem.
And you just mentioned it, Don, that one of the reasons Guy Ritchie wanted to make this film is the dynamics between male characters. Yeah. Is there chemistry between Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer?
They might as well just put the cue cards in the shot with the actors, because it's so obvious that they're just reading from a script. oh, I'm going to make a pun about a belt. And oh, I'm going to respond to that pun with another pun made about another belt. That's not working for me.
Martin?
Yeah, everything falls a bit flat.
But I
pretty
want to
much
say
everywhere
something nice
until-
as well. They are dressed very, very well.
We'll get back to that
Okay,
later.
okay,
Yeah, we have
perfect.
plenty of time reserved for the visuals and the sets and the costumes.
Great.
Because I totally agree with you on that, Tyler.
Great.
Okay, shall we go from the boys to the girls then? It's always better to do that, right?
Oh, yes.
So instead of Bond girls, we have 2 uncle girls, or should we call them aunts? Yeah, sorry. I prepared
How long
this.
did that take you?
I prepared this. It was like, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the evening, and all the children were crying the entire time. So I was feeling I needed a drink, and then I started working on this podcast preparation. But wow, the uncle girls, they are played by 2 very, very talented actresses. I would love to see both of them in Bond 26, by the way. We're talking about Alicia Vikander as the tough and resourceful Gabi, and Elizabeth Debicki as the villainous Victoria Vinci Guerra.
I like that name, though. The Vinci Guerra. It's
Vinci
like
Guerra.
Win War.
Win War, yeah.
It's a good name.
So first, let's start with Alicia. Tyler, would you like to say something about her?
Yes. Yes. The first time I saw her was in Ex Machina, which is...
I love that film.
Yeah, which is really one of the best and most claustrophobic, eerie, creepy movies that I've seen the last...
She's a robot, like a humanoid.
Yeah. And the thing, I haven't seen her in too many other movies, but the thing that I really like about her is that she has a very natural way of acting. What I just said about Cavill and Bobby Bland, how they are reading from cue cards, I don't get that feeling with her. I just get the feeling that she's actually the character that she should be portraying. She has a very believable way of acting. And one of you told me that she's very good looking as well. Well, I hadn't noticed, but now that you mention it, yeah, she's actually also very, very beautiful. But it's not just that. I really like the way she portrays the characters in the movie that I've seen her in.
So she would beat Aki in a best favorite Bond girl tournament?
No, because like I've said before, Aki is
untouchable.
No, I think Aki is a very capable agent as well. That's why I like Aki so much. I mean, she looks very nice as well, but I also think that she's really one of the first Bond girls who... She has her own gadget-laden car. She saves Bond a couple of times. She's really a very capable agent as well. And so... Unless they write a very capable agent role for Miss Vikander, Mrs. Vikander. Is she married?
Yeah, to Michael Fassbender.
Oh crap!
Well, you can take him.
Yeah, he's Magneto. You can take him.
Probably.
He's Magneto.
So unless they write a very capable agent role for her, I think Aki is still undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, weighing probably about 110 pounds.
I think I agree with you that she looks absolutely stunning and starts off really strong, but I kind of have the feeling that she turns into a rather uninteresting pajama-wearing girl later in the film. Because when we arrive in Rome, especially the second half of the film, there isn't much to do for her up until the end where she confronts her father, and she becomes less interesting to me as a character. Not talking about her looks, by the way.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
That goes mostly for the entire movie. I mean, I'm not invested in the movie itself. The thing with this movie for me is there are bits and pieces that I really like, interchanged with just stuff. So if the funny parts or the parts I like are 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes in between, I don't really sense the difference. So if at the end of the movie it's 10 minutes in between parts that I like, that doesn't make it too much worse than at the start when it's maybe 5 minutes in between.
Okay.
So
Alicia, she's Swedish, right?
Yep.
She plays a German girl.
Or Danish.
Swedish, I think.
Swedish?
I think she does a commendable job speaking German. I've read some people that think she has a horrible accent, but I think to general audience it's believable that she can speak German. But again, I think she's being a jerk. Early in the film, when she's being rescued in Berlin, people are shooting at her, and we don't know she's an MI5, MI6 operative
British operative.
yet. British something. So we are supposed to believe that she's being rescued by a CIA operative. why is she constantly giving him a hard time? She's being really obnoxious. And again, in Rome, she's constantly putting Kuryakin down. It's like, come on.
Because we have a movie set in the 60s that was made in 2014, 2015. So we need to have a strong, feisty female character.
I just thought she was being a bitch all the time. I really...
No. That's feisty.
Feisty, right.
Yes.
I get those two mixed up quite a lot.
Feisty, yeah. That was what he was going for.
Right.
But, again... visuals over substance.
Yeah. But then if you go to Becky...
Which is the real bitch of the film.
She's deliciously evil.
She's a great femme fatale, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Mummy says hello.
You may have heard of the Dark Angel of Ravensburg, the Butcher of Belsen. My personal favorite, the Fifth Horseman, Doctor of the Apocalypse. What history has failed to relate is that this was not 3 individuals, but the tireless work of a single artist. And today you have the privilege of experiencing his work firsthand.
Yeah, she's aloof, she's intelligent. I love that scene where she's drugging Solo.
The way she goes, lies on the sofa.
Yeah, exactly.
The way she moves is like almost cat-like. Or
yeah, and you have that image of Solo is lying on the couch. I really like that. I'm just going to lie down here because I don't want to fall. That was pretty smart. And the way she laced all the drinks, I really like that too. Yeah. And then she lies on top of the couch. It's almost like the barn scene in On Her Majesty's when Bond and Tracy are lying and she's higher than he is. Yeah. It's a really nice copied image, that. Yeah, she's really, really evil. I hate her demise. I think that was a wasted opportunity. Yeah. But the character, up until... at the end, she decides to grab the radio. She wouldn't do that. I mean...
she wouldn't be interested. She wouldn't respond to it.
Solo is monologuing, trying to get their location or something, and then she bites. Like, he's fishing and she bites. She wouldn't do that.
No, I agree.
That makes it unbelievable. And then the whole killing off is off-screen. I didn't care for that. Wasted opportunity.
But she doesn't actually need to bite for the plan to work, right? It's just keeping the captain talking. Would have been...
well, they needed for as long as possible to get a lockdown for the missile.
Yeah,
and they needed to be sure that she was on board.
No, because the missile was already launched.
Oh, okay.
Because before Solo starts
this
talking...
is with the time jumping in the film.
Yeah, it's before... So before Solo gets the microphone, Hugh Grant's character, who has a name...
says something like,
Waverly.
Go ahead, Captain.
Has a name in the movie as well.
Waverly.
Says to Solo, this is your cue. And in the flashback, we see that that's also the moment that the captain...
fires the rocket.
Yeah. Okay. I really love her. Martin?
Any thoughts on the leading ladies?
Well, nothing really that hasn't been said before. I mean, yeah, they look very good, but Miss Vikander doesn't really do much for a long time in between the Rome scenes, apart from being a bit of a, bitch to Hammer. And, as you said, I really love... What was the name? You say Winning the War? It was an anagram?
Vinci Guerra. Yeah, Win War. Yeah.
Win War, yeah, it's a very good name.
That's a very good name for a villain.
Yeah. And also like the way that she is like so very confident in what she does, and that's a trait you don't really see too much anymore in like the classic villains, that they're so convinced that their whole plan is going to work and they think they're outsmarting everyone. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah. There's one moment that I found had believable tension, and that's when Ilya Kuryakin needs to check the microphone or the homing device on the upper leg of Gabi. What's her last name? Teller?
Yeah.
The Vikander character.
In the hotel room, you mean.
And he feels up her leg and he goes underneath her skirt and something. And there you have some electricity, according to me, between
trying not to get lost.
Yeah, between the actors. And then Solo walks in and the moment is gone. But I thought that was a good connection they had then.
Good morning.
Morning. Your tracker's not sending a signal. You turned it on?
I think so. Or do you want to check it?
Be my guest.
It's your tracker.
You're the expert. I'll be on the balcony.
Still cold.
Sorry.
What are you doing down there?
Trying not to get lost. You're trembling.
That's because I'm scared.
It's going to be okay.
How do you know?
I'll be close by.
All turned on now.
Is her part also in the original series? Or is she a total fabrication of the mind of
She's a total fabrication. The only parts that are in the original series as well are the two main characters and Waverly.
Yeah. And one of the traits of the series, the TV show, was that each episode they had an innocent character that you could relate to as an audience that was somehow involved in the plot. And this is how Gabby was introduced, as being the innocent character that was just dragged into the plot. But unfortunately, at the end, she just turns out to be a British agent anyway, so it was all set up. But oh well, yeah.
Let's jump from the uncle girls to the villains. Besides Victoria Vinciguerra, who is basically the main villain of the film, we have two other baddies. One of them, Luca Calvani, plays a cardboard baddie with a mustache.
Is that the Alexander?
Yeah, boring.
Alexander.
Boring character.
He's hardly in it, right?
Which makes the final confrontation between him and Solo and Kuriaki
out of the
totally
blue.
Uninteresting.
Yeah.
Because you think, who is that guy?
Yeah. Why didn't they go after the lady? Why did they go after the guy?
Or make him a more interesting character.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make. The second time that I watched this movie, I was playing poker as well. So I might not have picked up on all the subtleties, but there was something that he's in a race car and that the Vikander character knows exactly what's wrong because she listens to the way the engine is running, and that's why she's something like that. That's like, besides the final confrontation, that's about the only scene that he's in, right?
Yeah, you
and
see
the fight at the end.
At the fight,
yeah, pretty much.
So, and a bit earlier in the Vinciguerra villa, but
but it's not like I missed an entire plot development and his character development.
Mainly
you
about
hardly
Victoria.
see him, and then until the end, and then he's suddenly the main villain they need to fight because Victoria has gone on a boat.
Because he has a mustache and Cavill wants a mustache or something like that.
That's my mustache.
I need that one for my next movie.
It's a battle for the mustache.
Yes.
However, I do like Sylvester Roth as a sadistic Uncle Rudy. The way he stacks those sugar blocks or peels the grape, this is so repulsive.
Yeah, but the way he flips through the family album, I could do without.
That is a question I have. It's not often that you see that there is a supportive role, like Uncle Rudy's, that they are going to tell his entire backstory. It has no role in the plot anyway, just to give him something to tell. I never saw it
maybe
before.
they thought it was a cool story to tell or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just felt very, very forced to me.
The way he dies is one of the funniest bits in the movies. Yeah.
The way he died. Yeah, it's a bit too much.
It's off screen, right? I mean, it's like a real comedy. You see the two guys with their backs towards
but I
door.
really like that.
But when I see him, I always think of a cockroach. He's a dirty, repulsive figure.
Nasty
and the
man,
way he's peeling the grapes.
The grape, yeah.
It's really disgusting.
I need to make a phone call. But I can't even do a German.
You don't
accent
like him,
now.
Don, right?
I don't like him. No.
No?
No, I don't like him.
But you don't like him in the way that
first, when I've seen this film like 3 or 4 times, and I forgot that he was the evil henchman when I saw it most recent time. He meets his cousin, Gabby Taller, the Vikander character. And he's such a creepy uncle. I was like, why would you be such a creepy uncle? That's no way that you would treat your niece if you run into her again after all these years. And then he's god-awful towards her fiancé all the time. Again, he's being a jerk.
But let's face it, every family has a creepy uncle.
It's a uncle like that.
I know.
But then eventually it becomes clear that he is a torturer, and he's like Dr. Kaufman, something like that. I'm sure he has a record somewhere of torturing some poor spy. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really care for him. He's slimy. Yeah, don't really care.
Are we ready for another female Bond villain?
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah,
sure.
But I would like her to be not a beautiful lady, but more Rosa Klebb-like figure.
Real ugly.
Really ugly.
Because according to Fleming, you are either very beautiful and totally incompetent, or very competent and a lesbian.
Have you guys seen? Do you like the?
This is Fleming's.
I'm going to pass on this question, Tyler. But no, I would like to see that.
Have you guys seen the third Thor film, Ragnarok?
Yeah.
With the villain is Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, I saw
thought
it.
she was awesome in that. I really think she did an amazing job at being evil.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I saw it, but didn't really
Didn't
make
make
an
a lasting impression.
No.
Oh, I thought that was such a fun film.
Yeah, I think someone, what's her name? Like, it was on TV not too long ago, and it sort of stuck with it. The Devil Wears Prada, what's her name?
Meryl Streep?
Meryl Streep, yeah. I think she can really pull that, like, iron, like, I can kill you without blinking kind of character.
We had Blofeld reiterated for Spectre. We could have Irma Bunt. Why not?
Yeah, but why? Why would you do
why
that?
Why not?
Because Blofeld has been, has returned in several films, and Irma
There
Bunt
might be a
hasn't.
stepsister.
Yeah, but, but before you know it, we have Largo coming back and Dr. No and what have you.
But if you have a character like Victoria Vinci Guerra, she would totally fit in a James Bond film.
To get back at your question, Tyler, I would love to see a female Bond villain, and then I would like to have one that we know right from the start she is the villain. Not
She's
like
evil.
Electra King in The World Is Not Enough.
Just
who,
sadistic,
for the first half of the
good
film
at her
plays an
job.
innocent, harmed girl.
Sexy as hell.
Just give us a good femme fatale like Victoria Vinci Guerra with a good name.
The thing is, I would like to see a beautiful lady in a Bond movie that Bond doesn't have sex with.
We
Either good or evil.
What about Camille? Camille
Quantum of
Montes?
Solace.
No.
Everybody always says,
true.
the novel Moonraker, it's so new, he doesn't get the girl at the end. Why don't we ever have this in a Bond film? It's like, well, you already have it in a Bond film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we get that quirky kiss at the end, which is...
It's quirky.
No,
Not that-
okay.
They just-
So
they
I forgot about Quantum of Solace, which is
Well, you
something
actually
that
have
I...
like 3 in a row.
It's a short film, so like...
Yeah, I often do, actually. But even though it's my second favorite correct movie... Well,
we digress.
Again.
Let's get back to The Man From U.N.C.L.E.
We have some difficulty
There's still
staying
one
on
character
track.
I would like to...
Well, we are a James Bond podcast, so
true.
He might pop in once or twice.
That's no problem, I think. There's still one character I would like to address, and that's Uber Brit Hugh Grant as their future boss, Waverly.
Yes.
Gentlemen, can you hear me? Well, now, if the Nazis are due to take delivery of this bomb at 0800, that gives us a luxurious 14 hours in which to seize the island, secure the warhead, and winkle out poor Professor Teller. There is also, of course, the small matter of retrieving my agent.
You have a British agent in this?
Well, she's not British.
She. Here we go. Starting to smell the irony. Gabby's working for you, isn't she?
Well done, sir. Yeah. You got there in the end.
I love Hugh Grant in this. Well, I love him in pretty much anything, and he's just such a likable. I don't know. He's just his way of downplaying like problems in whatever he's in. It just really hits my sweet spot.
Is it me, or is he not playing Hugh Grant
in this film?
Yeah, usually I didn't recognize him at first. I mean, I was like, oh, I know the guy.
You
from
hardly
Summer.
see him in the beginning.
Yeah, but he's also
glimpses.
he doesn't do his usual shtick.
I think it was well cast for this
very
role.
well.
To me, he's really the only likable character in the entire film.
Tons of charisma as well.
Yeah.
I like the dialogue when they're in the helicopter towards the island.
Oh, yeah. But also at the racetrack. I seem to have misplaced my invitation.
Yeah.
And you only get the name drop in the hotel, right? He's already at the hotel where
He checked in before Solo,
you just hear his name mentioned, and that's it. But yeah, he seems in control. He seems like he's having fun.
And because at first I thought it was Hugh Laurie.
Right, from The Night Manager.
Yeah. Or House,
a
bit of Fry and Laurie, but because I believe the first time you see him, he's wearing a pair of large sunglasses, and for some reason they have the same bone structure in their face. So I thought it's the other you. Okay,
yeah, Hugh.
Something I would like to talk about is the 60s, because this film takes place in the 60s. And I read somewhere that one of the reasons the film stayed in the 60s, so it was to allow the producers to have their own world, their own reality, their own tone, which sets it apart from the other spy films that were made at the time, such as the Bourne franchise and the Mission Impossible films. Do you guys think it's a wise decision that they placed it in the 60s and not updated it till 2015?
No, I'm not a fan of setting a movie in a different time frame if it's not a drama or a biography or something like that. Because what often happens is that they write a movie from a 2015 perspective and set it in the 60s because they don't want to offend anyone, so they don't want to take all the...
You get a romanticized vision or version of the 60s.
Yeah, all the rough edges and all the things that aren't really suitable nowadays are just left out.
Mm-hmm.
So you get like a 60s light version.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with technology, it's very difficult to make it believable. It's very difficult to make a gadget in a movie that is set in the 60s believable, because nowadays we have entire computers in our smartphone that we can use for everything. So every gadget that might look modern then just looks clunky and weird.
I kind of agree with you, but it does have advantages because now everything can be solved with a smartphone or anything can happen. And because those things didn't exist back then, it's like you said, it's kind of like its own bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if you look at the year that it came out and yet all these spy franchises, this really set it apart.
On the other hand, Kingsman does about the same thing as this movie does, just making a fun.
Yeah, but it's a present day film.
Yeah, but they do it in
and it's set in present times.
Yeah.
The problem you have as well, if you look at IMDb and you go to the goofs section of this film, there's an enormous list of people pointing out that this car didn't exist in 63. Yeah. This song wasn't recorded yet in 63. This didn't happen yet in 63. People wouldn't talk like this in 63.
Style over substance.
On and on and on.
That's
and on
what
and on.
you know. That's
yeah. So
what I do like is that they
don't take it too seriously. And I think one of the strengths of this film, and you mentioned it earlier, Tyler, is the visuals. And I think they got these strong visuals mainly because they chose a 60s period.
Yeah, that's true. But what I do like is that they don't explain everything. It's not like they make a few references to the Second World War and to the Berlin Wall and East and West Germany, and they don't explain everything to the stupid audience from 2015. Because nowadays you just get everything is shoehorned in and everything is explained to death. I'm glad you don't get Mussolini was...
I do remember, Don, that you said in one of our earlier podcasts that you would love to see a Bond film set in the 60s.
You know, well, we're going through the novels again for the podcasts, and I really, really like it to go really in depth with this. And I think if you look at a book and you could turn that into a Netflix series or something like that, and you just take 6 episodes or 8 episodes to go through a novel in that time period, I think the technology nowadays is good enough to recreate that atmosphere. You can shoot it back to back. I would like to see that. Yeah. I'm sure it has problems, like everything will have its problems, but I would really like to see that.
Do you think that if you portray Bond like he was portrayed in the novels, do you think he's still the hero of the...
That's going to be problematic.
That's probably the main problem.
Yeah.
Because if you really...
The way
really
you treat people.
If you're really going to...
He smokes 70 cigarettes a day.
Yeah, he calls Koreans apes.
Yeah.
If you really want to do it the way that it was written in the books, then I'm curious to see how they would
what
get
can
around
you keep
issues.
And what do you have to change? What are your non-negotiables?
Yeah, and then we get back to that. Are you going to get a light version of...
But if you, for instance, look at the book Moonraker, that wouldn't work if you try to translate it to now, because part of the problem in the book is that they can't communicate with others. That several people have different pieces of the puzzle, but they're not... They can't get that information out. That won't work in modern times. And it works perfectly in the 50s. But then again, we already have the book, so I don't really need to also have it in a film or in a TV show. But,
No, I would just be curious how they would get around some of the
yeah,
issues.
what would you keep?
Yeah.
What would you change?
Yeah, and most people would like to see something that remains really close to the book. I have some issues with that. I always think that Bond should be one day ahead of present day.
Something else I noticed in the film The Man From U.N.C.L.E. That we know from especially the Bond novels is that they incorporated a lot of expensive brands in the film. The film does it for clothes, food, certain Swiss vault. This is something we don't see a lot in Bond films. Something that you miss? It's something we do see in the Bond novels, but not as much, I think, in the films, especially not the latest films.
I'm sorry?
I know what you mean, that they have a lot of products in there, but they don't really mention it like they do in... For instance, you have the scene in The Man From U.N.C.L.E. where they are in the store, where Gabi is getting dressed, and they have the discussion
the
about
name dropping of the brands.
the name dropping of the brands. That's something you have
this
quite a
doesn't
lot
go
in
with
this
that,
film.
and yeah.
And we
Well, you
don't
have the Rolex Omega exchange.
Yeah, that's the only one
but
that pops up.
Yeah, that's
of
the one
last
that pops up.
5-6 films.
Yeah.
We have a lot of champagne. And we have a lot of brands that are very visible. I mean, a 5-second shot of a watch, for instance.
The visual, but not the discussion of what, whether you would prefer A or B.
Well, a bit more like the Dr. No thing, like where did you get this? My Taylor, Savile Row, that kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. And I know in the Bond novels you have quite some discussion that Bond prefers something over a certain brand for certain reasons. Those kind of things we don't have.
It's not something I miss in the films, really. I mean, Fleming can go on and on about breakfast or whatever, or what kind of clothing you need.
Pinot, elixir,
but in the book,
bubbles.
it's fine. But I don't need a 5-minute discussion on what type of shoes is better than the other one.
Okay.
No, but if you, for instance, if you take the subway scene in Skyfall with all the posters in the background and the guy holding his Coke bottle just so that the camera can pick up.
It's like with the Heineken bottle.
Yeah, but that I don't like. That's too much in your. It's too much in your face, I think.
Exactly. So if they start discussing the brands, like, oh no, I prefer.
Is that a Pepsi?
Yeah,
No.
I actually prefer Gordon's gin in my tonic, and
it's gonna be too much.
Music. The composer of this film is Daniel Pemberton. Before I give my own opinion, what do you guys think of this score?
I'm a bit 50-50 on this one. There's some tracks and some bits I really love, but some pieces just really missed that edge that I expect from a spy thriller action movie. The chase through Berlin. I think that's excellently done. Also because of the way the movie interacts with the film. It paces up when the speed of the chase goes on, and then when the car slows down, the music slows, stuff like that I really like. Well, there's some repetition in it. I guess they're trying to make a love theme for Arnie and Vikander.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some bits in it I miss some big action music in there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should go all out with the big band and blazers and horns and drums everywhere, but there's a moment to be very soft and quiet and understated, and there's a moment to go all out, and I kind of miss that with the film.
To me, the score had 2 highlights. And they were both not by Daniel Pemberton. It's actually the opening song. I had to look it up. It was by Roberta Flack.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely song. It was called Compared to What?
Yeah.
And that Italian song that you hear when Ilya Kuryakin is on the boat fighting for his life and Solo's just having a sandwich inside the truck.
Yeah.
Beautiful song. I don't know what song
I
it
do
was,
not
but-
like those picks. Yeah.
Vorrei tenerti qui vicino a me. Adesso che fra noi non c'è più nulla. Vorrei sentire ancora le tue parole.
And then Pemberton's... Well, let me be honest. I find his score to be repetitive. So if you listen to his tracks on the soundtrack, to me, they all sound alike, but I'm no music expert, and I've not listened to it over and over and over again. And it tries to be very hip. It tries so very hard to be cool. And I didn't like that. It's kind of like his score represents how I see Henry Cavill's Solo. He tries so hard at being cool. But then I played it for my kids and my wife. I said, listen to this horrible soundtrack, and they all love it. It's like, oh, this is really cool. It's like, yeah, that's what it's trying to be. I say, oh, it's succeeding, but it's not my kind of music. But then, looking at some of the YouTube clips from the old series, it's the same. The music from the TV show is pretty much the same. So I guess he does an okay job. It's just not my kind of music, something like that. What about you, Tyler?
Imagine being in the cinema and you're really thick. Like you have difficulty picking up on things. So you're not quite sure whether you're going to watch a spy thriller, Bourne-esque, current Bond movie, dark, gritty spy movie, or something like Austin Powers. And then the soundtrack starts. It shows you right away what kind of movie this is. And I think it works brilliantly for the movie that this movie is trying to be. A fun, spy, spoofy thingamajig where most scenes are not really played for laughs, but aren't serious either. I think it works really well for this movie.
Oh, I'm so glad you say this, Tyler, because I thought I was the only fan of the score. I totally love this soundtrack. I love especially Escape from East Berlin, the opening.
Yeah.
Tyler and Martin, you're both here by car. We are at Dan's place. When you go home, put on Escape from East Berlin.
I put it on
and
when I drove here.
Try not to drive too hard or without smiling. You will not succeed. I like that it also has a bit of an Ennio Morricone thingy, like the da-da-da, that part, the drums of war at the end when they go for the big battle at the end. That's so great. I really love it. One of the first, when I saw this film for the very first time, I thought, oh, I want to have that soundtrack. I just enjoy it so much, and I listen to it quite a lot. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this score. What I find interesting, and you also mentioned it, is that Pemberton uses some existing songs. We don't see that a lot in the Bond films. Sometimes.
London Calling, of course.
London Calling.
Boom Boom.
Boom Boom in Skyfall, but not as much as we see it here. Is this something that would work within a Bond film or preferably not?
Well, I think it works for this film because it's set in a different time, so you have music that like echoes that time. I don't think Bond 25, 26 would really improve if you like watch it again in 10 years and you hear like Alicia Keys or whatever, like because that was the music of the time. So I don't really think it adds too much to a modern day film.
I would like it if Craig or Bond comes home after a mission. Or
puts on a record.
Yeah, and just puts on a nice jazz record or something like that. Just to get a little bit of insight in what Bond would listen to.
But it doesn't have to be a new modern record. It doesn't have to be.
No, exactly. It can be a 60s record.
A bit like
the
Monica Bellucci character does in Spectre.
Yeah.
I love that music.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. So, mixed feelings about the music.
Mixed feelings.
I do agree with you, Tyler, that it fits the film, but that also is my problem with this film. Maybe I just don't understand what this film is trying to be. It's not serious, but it's not spoofy
Maybe you should
either.
rewatch the film and first watch that small documentary on YouTube regarding style over substance. Because then you are going to look at the film from a different perspective and might enjoy it a bit
I know
more.
what you're saying, but that's not what I want in a film. I want substance. That's what I appreciate. That's what I like.
Yeah, but I love to have a good meal, but every now and then McDonald's is fine as well.
No. I disagree with you.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm not going to discuss the quarter pounder that I just had for 3 hours with 3 friends of mine at a kitchen table.
Are we already talking about this film for 3 hours?
Well, we will.
Okay, so if you look at some of what the critics said about this film, one of them said it pretty well. It says, well, it's fun while you're watching it, but then as soon as you walk out of the theater, you forgot pretty much what you were looking at.
Yeah.
And but that's not a problem. Because you have 2 hours that you really enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, with the jerky characters. I'm sorry. Okay.
Maybe we have already talked about the villains, the girls, the music, the setting in the 60s.
Would you like Daniel Pemberton? What else did he do? Would you like him as a composer for the Bond films?
Well, I think we kind of had that with Skyfall and Spectre, Thomas Newman doing the repetitive thing.
No. I think that's a totally different tone of voice.
And I don't think that he would write the exact same style of music for a serious Bond movie that we are getting.
Who are we getting now for the new film? They announced it. It was Sam, Dan.
Someone already works with...
on Beasts of No Nation.
Yeah.
Dan Romer or something like that.
Yeah, I was
really curious about the
David
new
Arnold's
soundtrack
coming back, but I digress.
But just to get back to you've enjoyed yourself for 2 hours, and it's okay if you forget everything 5 minutes after you walk away from the movie. Is that really true? Is an enjoyable movie for 2 hours really that good if there's nothing that you can remember afterwards?
Well, I do remember quite a lot of things afterwards, because when I saw the film in cinema, after that I thought, wow, this looks really good. And wow, I really want to listen to that score again.
And wow,
but I didn't sympathize with any of the characters. It didn't make me sit on the edge of my seat for
Were you
action
looking forward
pieces.
to a sequel back then?
Yeah, I would. Still, at the end of the film, they say we need to go to Istanbul for a new mission. Bring it on.
I would love this to be a movie series where you can actually start to get a connection with the characters, but just churn it out once every year. Just give me one once every year.
I think it wasn't that a successful film. That's
financially didn't do that
financially,
well.
No, that's the main reason why.
Well, I think that's because we've been looking at like a prequel without having anything for it to prequel for. So it's like an origin story for characters you have no idea who they are and what they're doing.
And that's the silly part or the stupid part. They should have done one of 2 things. Either they should have had the characters fully established, just start them off at the movie, give us a bit
of regular mission.
Yeah, just give us a bit of exposition, like this is Napoleon Solo, this is Kurienko, and this is MI6 agent.
By the way, that's how they did it in the 60s.
Yeah,
it just started.
They just started. Start a movie, have a go, and then it's okay. Then it can be a standalone movie. And now you have 2 hours, and after 2 hours you get, okay, so
we're going to get started.
Yeah, you're the new team. Yeah. Here we go. We have some interplay between the characters. We have some running gags going with the cowboy stuff, which I like. And okay, let's get it on.
Yeah, I agree.
You mentioned the cowboy stuff, and then it ends, and then you get nothing. But I was watching this film, like I said, for the 4th time or something, and I picked up on Peril. Like
Red
Kuryakin keeps calling Solo cowboy, and Solo calls Kuryakin Peril all the time.
Red Peril.
I was thinking I missed something. Yeah, it's like the Red Peril, the fear for communism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the worst nicknames you could give somebody, I think. Peril. It's like a girl's name, it sounds like. Maybe that's the fun of it. I don't know.
So we talked about the main characters, the girls, the villains, the music. Would like to talk about set design, costumes, and locations. I see a very enthusiastic Martin, so fire off.
Yeah, well, there's some movies that like try too hard, but I think everyone in pretty much every scene looks so good. Especially the first scene where Solo goes to Italy to the racetrack. And I'm like, I want to have every piece of clothing, every car, every furniture, every glass, every drink. I want to have everything that you see on screen. I even like the song by Louis Prima. Like even the music, everything is just so pure 60s. It's just I love it. It's the whole cinematography. Like the editing might not be my thing, but everything you do see on screen is just. I love it.
The sequence at the races, that's probably my favorite part of the film, because I would really love to see a setting like that in a Bond film.
Like the book, Trigger Mortis?
Yes, like the book, yeah. Also, you notice the little nod there to the Bond
Count
film?
Lippy.
Count Lippy.
Yeah.
But would it be the same, the current day Formula One circus, compared to the Playboy style Formula One
if
from
they
the 60s?
If the setting would be Monte Carlo, then they could
Maybe,
recreate that, I
yeah,
think.
maybe.
They shouldn't do it on some average...
No, because I can't really... I mean, someone like James Hunt is a complete opposite from someone like Kimi Räikkönen, who is, well, who could have played Kurienko very well, I think.
Yeah, but I think at Monte Carlo, the setting there, you know, what you already
we
see
have
in Golan,
some
bit more informal,
that would work.
mistakes,
More
yeah.
as a backdrop, not so much
Well,
as
you
the
have
main
some
thing
of
in the
these
film.
events, like a friend of mine who's now at Monterey Car Week, which is pretty much everyone with the rich people in the world with the most beautiful wives in the world somehow all go out together in one place with their Ferraris and their Lamborghinis and their super yachts, and then they're just all just looking at other people's stuff, which they will then buy again.
And there is a Bond villain. So James Bond needs to go
probably,
there.
yeah.
That
Yes,
would
yeah,
be a perfect setting, I think, for...
I'd love one of them high-stake, high-fashion places.
Absolutely.
I have
Bit of
to
glamour.
admit, though, that when I was watching the film, I love Formula One. I like watching the races. But it didn't make any sense to have it in this film. They don't do anything with it in the film. They have a party there, and everything looks amazing, like you said. But they're not racing.
The cardboard villain is.
Well, he just
the mustache.
He drives
mustache is
over.
racing.
He just drives over and says his car is broken down. But nobody cares
but it
about
just
that.
they decided to have a cool setting.
It's a
and
cool
just-
setting. They shot it in England, I think, for real.
Yeah.
I think they chose good locations for this film. You have East Berlin, you have Checkpoint Charlie, obviously in the beginning, which wasn't shot at Checkpoint Charlie, but the locations itself, I think they're quite good. Rome is always a very romantic.
They make better use of Rome than the Bond users did in Spectre.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. They did. Yeah. What else do you have? Where else did they go?
No, it's mainly in Italy. From
Yeah.
Rome, they go to Naples, I think. That's where the ending is. And then you have the Vinciguerra Island. I mean, a good villain needs to have his own island.
Yeah, Villain's Lair. Yeah, that's pretty good.
It reminded me, for some reason, it's the way I always pictured Dragonici in the Colonel Sun movie,
yeah.
which is also a crescent-shaped island, I believe.
It's Vraconici.
Oh,
that's okay.
Yeah, sorry, but the island in Colonel Sun, for some
Greek
reason,
island.
the first time I saw it, I was like, hey, but that's also crescent-shaped, and is this a nod to Bond, or am I just looking into things?
Yeah, but
And
the look of the film, the clothing, the style, everything looks as how I would picture the 60s should be. It's probably not how they were.
No.
But
It's a stylized version of the 60s,
yeah,
I guess.
exactly. One thing I remember from interviewing that artist from the graphic novel Casino Royale, he explained it to me quite well. So I asked him how difficult it was to recreate the 50s, the look of the 50s. And he said, well, you have to remember that when you live in the 50s, not all the cars, all the houses you see are from the 50s. You have stuff from the 20s, from the 10s, from the 30s and everything. It's all mixed. So that's how you should recreate it. If you go back to the 60s, not everything looks as though it was created in the 60s. But maybe this is a highly stylized version of that. But yeah, it has a nice look and feel to it. Yeah.
Anything else to add, Tyler, regarding the costumes?
Who do you agree with Solo or with Kuriakin about the costume for Alicia Vikander?
These dresses are all in your size.
Excuse me?
Soviet architect traveling to Rome would never dress his woman in the clothes you try to put her in. You try to dress her like someone on your side thinks someone dressed behind the Iron Curtain.
She's from behind the Iron Curtain.
That doesn't mean she wants to bring it with her. We need 2 purses, please. And every day in clutch. And grab that belt. No, not at yours. The Rabanne.
You can't put a Paco Rabanne belt on a Batuu.
She's not going to wear Batuu.
What's wrong with a Batuu?
Nothing. If you're fat, the Dior goes with the Rabanne.
It won't match.
It doesn't have to match.
She should wear as little as possible. No, Martin and I had a discussion a couple of weeks ago through WhatsApp about matching the exact tone of leather belt with your shoes and your strap on your watch. And I think that things can clash a bit now and again. So I wouldn't wear a black belt with brown shoes, but you can wear several shades of brown, for instance.
Yeah, but as long as the colors match. I'm like, well, I used to go, if I'm wearing brown shoes, brown belt, there's like a watch with the brown brown strap as well.
What about the cuffs and collars?
Yeah, as well.
Good thing.
Okay. Naturally.
I'm checking
I'm checking my
belt, and I think, oh my god, it doesn't match with my shoes at the moment.
No, but for instance, if you're wearing a bit of a casual outfit, it's perfectly fine to wear a blue belt with black shoes. For instance.
Thank God for that.
There are people who are cursing their radio right now for me saying something like this. But I was playing poker, so I don't really remember what they were discussing. They were discussing
different brands. She should wear this. No, she should wear that.
They were one-upping each other again, so I kind of tuned out.
Yeah.
But I do love the dresses. More or less every dress in this movie I would probably be willing to buy, and come to think of it, probably wear myself as well, because they look so great. Okay. The green and white one, and we were discussing this beforehand, the white and black one that Vinci Guerra is wearing before when she gets on the yacht, the high neckline. Yeah. Not shabby at all.
One thing I also want to talk about, it's a main element from the Bond films, is the action / stunts. You have some action set pieces in the film. You have the opening in East Berlin. You escape from Berlin. You have halfway through the movie the break-in and break-out at the harbor office. And of course the finale. What do you guys think of the action in this film?
I didn't really like the finale. I think the break-in is funny because of the interplay between the two characters, and the escape from Berlin is...
Did you think it looked a bit fake?
I think the entire movie looks fake, but that's okay.
You mean fake as in that they use CGI at the end?
I like the first part when they try to outsmart each other in the cars, and that was a bit of clever timing and driving with the parked car, and they try to move with the car in between themselves so they don't see each other. I think that was clever. But then Armie Hammer goes Terminator 2 and he runs behind the car and he pulls something off the car and they go through a small alley, and then it becomes a bit cartoonish.
The ending looks a bit strange when they
slide down the cable
over the wall.
Yeah, too cartoonish for me, but I thought it started out well.
He reminds me of Barry from Archer for some reason.
Bionic Man, yeah. I don't know, I did like the ending.
To that Berlin scene.
Yeah, going over it and then having the truck backwards, so...
That's smart.
But he ends up in a minefield. He's a lucky guy that he doesn't blow up. But it was smart on Solo's behalf. Yeah,
he needed a hovercraft from Colonel.
It's a bit of a minefield.
It's a bit of a minefield.
Right over. And the ending, you have this weird chase that goes on and on and on, and there's a lot of staring. You have all these close-up shots of people looking at other people, but they're not doing anything. And then the camera zooms in and out like a satellite all the times, like he's over there, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And they just drive, and that's it.
And like we get the carburetor or the exhaust. That's why he can't go through the lake.
He drives through a lake, and then the other guy drives around it, and that's it.
I do like shots like that. It's just very, to show why, like non-cut. Like my girlfriend actually was like, why isn't he going afterwards? I'm like literally replayed it 10 seconds, go back 10 seconds. I'm like, you see, that's his intake, that's his intake. So, I like it's like storytelling without saying a word, and that's
Visuals.
quite
I
clever,
agree
yeah.
with you on the visuals of the finale. There are two things I don't like about the sequence. First of all, I don't care about the villain. As a matter of fact, first time I saw the film, I thought,
Who is this guy?
Who is that guy?
Yeah.
And how does he get such a cool mustache? And the second thing is that you have cardboard villain with a mustache, and then you have Solo, who's like built as an ape, and you have Kuryakin, who's also, just Terminator style.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, who's gonna win? Let me guess. And then you have Gaby as well. So it's totally not thrilling at all.
But they try to make it exciting, but somehow it doesn't work.
The
really.
racing looks good, but then in the end they have the fight, and all of a sudden it starts raining, and then they have this
Slow motion
fist fight, and then I think one of
He
them
gets
stabs
stabbed,
them,
yeah.
and that's it.
Oh, and Kuryakin manages to pull what's his name? The guy from For Your Eyes Only, the tough guy. The guy that always grabs onto something heavy.
Kriegler.
Yeah, Kriegler. Yeah, he throws his motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
That's really good. That's him. Yeah.
Which I thought was very cool, by the way. I was like, I was watching it with my girlfriend. I'm like, damn, I want to drive a motorcycle. She's looking at me like, why? I'm like, just stuff. Like, he makes me want to have a motorcycle.
Do you also notice that there is just something entirely off topic here? There is a small cameo in the film from a very famous guy. I saw it on IMDb.
Not famous enough.
In the beginning of the film, when Kuryakin gets told who Solo is.
Right. It's the briefing. I read this. It's the briefing scene. Oh, who was
who
that?
puts the
So Kuryakin gets the briefing in Russian about who
puts the picture
Solo
of
is.
the guy upside
and
down.
There's I forgot.
Yeah, it's David Beckham.
Right, David Beckham. That's it. Yeah.
We need to cast a Russian guy. Let's go with David Beckham.
Sure.
Yes. It's probably Madonna's idea. Okay, so we talked about the elements that we know from the Bond villains films as well. So the main hero, the girls, the uncle girls, the villains, the allies, the music, the set pieces, costumes, set design, action. Before we go to our final analysis, is there something, guys, that you really want to talk about regarding the Man from U.N.C.L.E. that we haven't covered yet?
I like it that Solo cooks. That was a nice little nod to Harry Palmer, maybe.
You should
I
watch
don't know. But that was nice. And like I said, I really like the electricity between Kuryakin and Gaby Teller, in that one small scene. And there's this funny scene as well with the receptionist from the hotel and Solo. I'd like that when...
with the 5 minutes before her shift ends?
Yeah, I can think of something. She was hot.
Especially when she walks out to the bathroom.
That was fun. Other highlights?
I liked the dancing bit with like how she tries to like seduce Kuryakin. I thought that was funny.
In the hotel room.
He's just sitting there very
he's
serious.
Playing chess, right?
She's just like making a fool of herself. I thought that was funny. But then again, they ruined that by having her slap himself twice or 3 times. I'm like,
So time for the final analysis then. I'm not going to ask you to grade it on a 10-point scale. I'm just going to go Netflix style here. Thumb up or thumb down. I'll go first. So you can think about it. I really enjoy The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It is stylish in production design. I think there's 2 fantastic actresses, a fantastic soundtrack. And I think what I just mentioned, the analysis style over substance, that's really something that I like in this film. I wouldn't like it for a Bond film, but I like it in this film. It's an enjoyable 2 hours. It's not a Bond film, but it's a great alternative, I think, for watching a spy film. So yeah, thumb up from Anthony, who wants to
I think
follow.
this is a great way of grading this movie because it shows exactly what to me is wrong with this movie, because I can't pick one of the 2. I can't give it a thumbs up because I'm not really entertained, but I can't give it a thumbs down either because I don't hate it or I don't dislike it in any way, shape or form. I just think it's a nice little nothing you're almost wearing.
I approve. But
yes.
What would you do?
So I give it a me.
Okay.
That's not an option here, Tyler. You need to do you have a Netflix account? You have thumb up or thumb down?
Yeah, but I'm not forced to
vote.
I have never voted in my life on a Netflix series or movie.
You're
but
forfeiting.
If I have to, I think it's there is so much wasted potential in this movie that just because of that, I'm going to give it a thumbs down. But not because I don't like it.
Okay. Martin?
Yeah, if I'm forced to, I think I'm going to have to give it a thumbs down as well. Like, there's some bits I like, but if I really look at the things I like, I could just as well just look at, like, the official set photos and listen to the soundtrack for a bit. It's eye candy, but not enough interesting stuff to make it worth 2 hours of my time again.
So 1 up, 2 down. Done.
Better make that 3. I'm sorry, I have to give it a thumbs down, and it's mainly because I can't relate to these characters. I think that's pretty much what it all comes down to. It does things quite well. I think the pacing is good. I think locations are perfectly fine. I even think it's well cast, but I don't enjoy watching characters constantly bickering and fighting and saying how great they are and how stupid the other one is. I don't need that. It's just, I'd like my 2 hours back, please. Yeah.
But it could have been a perfectly acceptable first entry in a long-running movie series.
Then you should give it a thumb up.
No.
No, if I'm forced, no, thumbs down. Okay. I'm sorry.
No problem. 3 down, 1 up. That's it. Yeah. So this was the very first Rogue podcast of the 00 Files. Do you like it, guys?
It makes you reappreciate watching a Bond film. So that's really great, you know?
So with this in mind, we're going to re-review Die Another Day next week.
Fine by me.
So to our listeners out there, let us know what you think of us going rogue every now and then. Of course, we will return with a Bond review next time. And we will randomly select the next Bond film. And I have a question to determine who may select the film we will review.
Oh dear.
David Beckham! No.
Yeah, you get it. There were many iconic spy TV series in the 60s.
Yeah.
One of the most iconic was The Avengers. So this question is going to be about The Avengers and not about The Man From U.N.C.L.E. because I noticed the stack of notes that Don took.
I only took half of my regular notes.
Yeah, I know.
So
The Avengers.
And you're not talking about Thor or
I'm not
Hulk
talking about
or
Captain
Iron
America
Man.
and his friends. No, I'm talking about the 60s The Avenger. Both the 60s series as the 90s film version had quite a few actors and actresses that turned up in the Bond series as well. Write down as many as possible. So both from the series of the 60s as the Avenger film that was produced in the 90s. So gentlemen, put down your pencils. You're gonna get a point for each name that you guessed correctly of an actor or actress that was in either the film or the TV series, The Avengers. Who wants to go first?
I don't have that many, so I'll go first.
Done?
I have to admit, I've never seen the TV series nor the film. So this is only by what I heard or read. I have 5 that I think I know. Honor Blackman.
1.
Diana Rigg.
2.
Patrick Macnee.
3.
Sean Connery.
4.
And Ray Fine.
5.
I have a question mark with Jack Lord. He's bound to be in there, so I'm not sure.
You get 5 points, Don. Jack Lord is not in The Avengers.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So, not bad, though.
Who wants to go next? Martin?
Well, yeah, I had the same 5 with a question mark with Lois Maxwell. I knew she did some stuff like Saint here and this and there. And
I know there are a few actors and actresses that have a small cameo in The Avengers. I'm going to check if Lois Maxwell is one of them.
Ooh.
6 points for you, Martin. Lois Maxwell is in there.
Nice.
1 episode, and she plays Sister Johnson.
Wow, there you
6 points for you, Martin. Tyler, you need to score 7.
So I have the same 6. Sean Connery, Patrick Macnee, Diana Rigg, Honor Blackman, Ralph Fiennes, and Lois Maxwell. I also have Robert Brown.
Yes, and?
Who was in everything. This will probably not going to score me any points, but the actress who played Ruby Bartlett in On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
No, that's 0 points.
Yeah, I thought so. I start at 0 again. Bernard Lee and Shirley Eaton.
You get a point for Robert Brown.
Yes.
You don't get a point for Bernard Lee. Oh. Julian Glover was in there as well, for instance. Christopher Lee.
Wow.
Really? Wow. Do you know Jeffrey Palmer, the guy from Tomorrow Never Dies? Admiral Roebuck.
Right, yeah.
I do know Arnold Palmer.
I don't know if he's in there. But you get 7 points, Tyra.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Woo! So you can pick our next Bond film review.
Okay, and I'm going to pick GoldenEye or Moonraker or From Russia with Love or...
It's good to go back to Bond, though. Yeah.
I am looking forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels good. We're going up. No.
Sing the song.
Oh.
The living daylights.
So we're gonna get a Dalton one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for now, folks. We will return with a brand new Bond review podcast on The Living Daylights. In the meantime, should you have any remarks or questions regarding this podcast or anything else we have produced, please let us know. You can find us through the familiar social media channels or email us at moneypenny@the00files.com. See you later, alligator.